Welcome you all to Chapter 9 of CHD 209. This week we'll be discussing Chapter 9, like I said, which is the intellectual development in the first year. So let's get started. One of the things we want to make sure of while we're looking at the topics that we're going to talk about is this very question in front of you. How do infants come to make sense of their world, and how can the parents or their caregivers support the baby's agenda for learning during that first year? So let's get going. There's lots of objectives associated with this chapter, so you can just look through them through your PowerPoint. But we're going to get on into the chapter, okay? So here's what we know. Brain development supports learning. So babies, healthy newborns, they're using all of their sense organs, okay? They're using their sense of taste, smell, sight, feel, touch, and any kind of all of their sensory and motor experiences wire their thinking and their memory centers of their brain. Okay, so let's look at what the memory centers of the brain are. All right, so we're talking about during the first year, they're going to be developing their vision center, use of sight. They're going to be developing their motor center, which is their reflexes, their motor skills, okay? Their thinking center, which is the way they're going to interpret information. And then their memory center, where is that is that explicit memory, like their conscious memory and their unconscious memory. So these are going to be real important. There's probably a quiz question that asks you what centers of the brain develop during the first year. So here it is. Perceptual learning. Let's talk about that. What is perceptual learning? Well, perceptual learning is the process of making sense of sensory stimuli, okay? Things that stimulate their senses. And so you take it and you learn something from it. That is perceptual learning, okay? Might be a question on your quiz about that as well. It's how we organize our information, okay, in our brain. And everybody reacts differently to different types of stimuli, okay? So whatever experience, not all babies are going to react the same way. So that is their perceptual learning, the way that they make sense of sensory stimuli. Cognition, we know this, okay? This is the act or process of knowing something and understanding. Remember, we talk about it. This is your brain development, okay? How you learn things. And we know there's two psychologists that are associated with it, Piaget and Vygotsky, okay? They're our brain men. They're the ones that research the brain, okay? So Piaget actually has a cognitive development theory, okay? And so he says, between birth and 2 years of age, children explore using their senses and motor actions, and these are called the sensory motor stage, okay? What I want you to pay a particular attention to is look at substage 4. That's where they're coordinating secondary reactions, which is setting goals, okay, and developing goals. So if you see a question on your quiz about at what substage do children develop goals, it's in substage 4, okay? All right, we talked about Vygotsky. He's kind of sociocultural theory guy, okay? He, remember, says that not only that your environment and your culture determine the way you think and the way you process thought, okay? He is a big believer, and I think this is one of the things that teachers use the most. It's called scaffolding. So how adults help children reach that next stage of development through scaffolding. Now I want you to think about scaffolding for a second. Scaffolding is just that. When I think about scaffolding, I think about someone trying to paint a tall building, okay? And how they need those ladder type things to help them, to boost them up, to give them the support to reach up high to paint. That's exactly what adults and caregivers and parents do for children during that, all throughout their life, is to provide that scaffolding that allows that learning to take place, okay? And so how we know that is called their zone of proximal development, might be called the ZPD zone, okay? And it's the zone at which children can learn with support. So it's really important for the caregivers, the teachers, the parents to kind of know where that zone of proximal development is for children, so they can provide that support that's necessary to help them learn and to reach those next milestones. If you were advising a child care provider on infant development, how would you suggest scaffolding a 9-month-old child's learning? Give us 2 examples. So look in your book and see if you can figure out how would you do that during the first year of their life and provide that scaffolding where you would know about their ZPD zone. All right, so let's talk about what children learn during the first year, okay? So you've got some objectives and you can read those, okay? So here are some things that children learn during that first year. They remember an object for a short time. They use different sucking techniques. They become aware of their environment, okay, the space around them. They will imitate or model the actions of another person. And they differentiate between speech and other sounds, recognize a parent's voice. They may not see you, but if you call their name, they turn their head, they're looking for you. Okay, so they're beginning to recognize that speech. And then, of course, they exercise their reflexes by moving, by moving their limbs. So, concept learning. Let's look at this. Concept is an idea formed by combining what is known about a person, object, place, quality, or event. Okay, so we organize all of our thinking through concepts. Concrete to abstract. Concrete, remember, is something that we can see, that we can hold. Okay, all the way to concepts. Some concepts can be abstract. When I think about abstract concepts, I think about math. Okay, some science. Okay, we need to be able to show children. Let's think about 2 plus 2. We might not say 2 plus 2 is 4, but if we haven't given them something concrete with counters so that they can put 2 objects, count how many we have, 4, and we just want them to know 2 plus 2 is 4 without ever showing them anything, that's abstract. Okay, so you can't move into that abstract thinking until you've gone through that concrete thinking first. Okay. All right, let's look at perceptual concepts. One of the things that I really want you to talk about right here is called object constancy. Okay, so what is object constancy? It is that things remain the same, that an object remains the same even if it appears different. Okay, a ball can be different colors, but it's still a ball. Okay, that is one thing that they learn. You're going to need to know that. Object constancy. What is it? Knowledge that things remain the same even if they appear different. Okay. Perceptual concepts, spatial concepts, and number sense. So look through those. Also physical concepts. Okay. But then we get to relationship. Relationship concepts occur in the mind. Those other perceptual ones are physical, like we're something that is tangible, whereas relationships occur in the mind. Okay. Let's talk about their language. Okay. Brain wiring for language begins at birth, maybe even before. Okay. During the first 6 months, babies can distinguish small differences in sounds and are prepared to learn any language. Okay. Which I think is so interesting. Any language, they're prepared to learn any language in the first 6 months of their life. In the second 6 months, pruning begins, and infants complete the auditory maps needed for learning their primary language. All of these interactions that you see here, these social interactions, require language. Turn taking, parent ease. Parent ease is where we talk to babies kind of in that high pitch, oh my gosh, you're so cute. You know, that kind of talking. Okay. Connecting objects with words. FaceTime, looking, talking to them, language rich environments, imitation or modeling. And one thing that's really interesting to know right here about language learning is that about in the 8th month of a child's life, they know about 36 words already. They know and understand 36 words because of these types of social interactions that you see here. And that'll be important because that might be a quiz question, okay? Communicating. Cooing, that's a form of communicating. Starts at about 6 to 8 weeks of age and they start cooing. Very early, babbling, okay? Then there's another form of communicating though that sometimes people don't think about, and that's passive vocabulary, okay? So a passive vocabulary can exceed an active vocabulary, which means it's the vocabulary that you need where you really don't, excuse me just a second, where you really don't have to so much communicate while doing it, okay? So it's kind of words that you only have to understand, but you don't actually have to speak or write them, okay? That is your passive vocabulary. Let's move on a little bit through this. And let's talk about meeting children's needs, intellectual needs during their first year. One thing that's important to, that you might see again is something called a baby agenda for learning. The baby agenda is a universal set of skills that a baby first learns, okay? And you see them right here: motor skills, language, understanding how things work. They understand quickly how that bottle works or that passy works, okay? Seeking significant relationships. They want that, okay? They want that relationship with their caregiver. If they cry, they want somebody to come to them and help them. Maybe they're hungry, change their diaper, okay? And then they learn how to interact. You know, but they realize if I smile, do something funny, then it gets the attention of the adult, then I'm going to do it again, okay? And that's their way that they interact with other people. So the baby agenda is a set of universal skills that any baby first learns, okay? Here are some stimulating activities for newborns. They get stimulated. And their stimulation comes from interactions with their caregivers, okay? If they just are laid in a bed all day long, there's not going to be very much stimulation, okay? So they enjoy seeing your faces, hearing sounds, playing peekaboo, feeling warm and loved, looking at objects with appealing features, anything to stimulate their minds and their brains, okay? Here's some sensory activities, anything that stimulates all 5 of their senses, and then those motor activities, which we know helps with their coordination, and those have to be initiated and encouraged by caregivers as well. Problem solving, let's talk about that for a second. Any type of stimulating activity where it's using exploration to learn how the world works through problem solving and why that's so important even during that first year of development. Things like maybe dropping an object and then you pick it up and give it back to them. I think about a child sitting at a high chair and they drop their spoon, comes back, get the caregiver picks it back up, puts it back on the tray, they drop it again, okay? They're problem solving there. They realize what's going to happen. Playing peekaboo. They realize when you cover up, your face really is still there, okay? Problem solving. Looking at objects from different perspectives. Those are all kind of examples of problem solving. So you might want to just take these, look at these questions right here. That might be helpful for you in your quiz. Thanks for joining me for Chapter 9, Intellectual Development in the first year. And if you watch this, I mentioned every quiz question during this quick presentation.